Welcome to Milan Recording Studios. My name is James Pavel Chakras, and today I have a different video for you guys. And I feel like I've been saying that a lot, but this video is literally a lot different from many of the stuff I usually do. The first thing I wanted to mention in this video is that there are a lot of piano brands out there in the world that I have played, and if you name a piano brand, the chances are I have played it. Steinway? Check. Bose&Ruffer? Check. Yamaha? Check. Fazioli? Check. And many, many others as well, even some of the more rare ones like C. Bechstein. However, there are a number of brands that have not been able to play as well because they come from exotic lands and there are very few of them, the makers are very small, and there are simply not very many of those pianos around. Brocato, for instance, the Italian piano maker who only makes a handful of pianos a year. They're most famous for the Doppio Brocato, which was the set of concert grands where you play one of them with a pedal board and you play the other one normally. I think they've also come out with a new model, the Grand Brie 333 or something like that. So there's Brocato from Italy. There is Chris Main from, I believe, Belgium, who is the only modern maker of a straight-strung piano. You have the Strad Piano Company, which is, I believe, an American piano company who actually has a piano in the Vatican, I believe, which is quite impressive. And then finally you have Stuart & Sons, one of the very few Australian piano makers, and they have been very famous for making pianos with extended keyboards. They've had a 97-key piano, they've had a 102-key model, and most recently and most famously, they have had the 108-key piano. As you might understand, many people want me to review these pianos, and the one I get the request for most often is Stuart & Sons. They're obviously one of the more famous of these boutique manufacturers that hardly make any pianos at all, and many people want me to review their pianos. They have a very striking appearance, they have a very unique feature, which would be the extra keys, both in the treble and in the bass on some of their models, and they're just overall unique. There are a few videos online featuring these pianos, and so many people are excited about them and interested in them, and many people want them, and like I said, many people want me to review them. So a couple nights ago, I got a comment from someone whose name I believe was Graham Lowe. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, your name. And he asked me, or she, I don't know, but they asked me if I could review a Stuart & Sons piano, and I replied with that I haven't ever found one in the United States. So then Graham Lowe came back and replied with that they had contacted Stuart & Sons, and that the owner of the company, whose name is Wayne Stuart, replied to Graham Lowe and told them that there were actually two Stuart & Sons that he knew about in the United States. One in San Francisco, one in Vermont. So then Graham Lowe gave me the email address for Wayne Stuart, and I sent him an email asking about his pianos. Let me read you the email. Let me know what you guys think. So my email read, "Our family runs a recording studio in Tennessee, USA, but travel the country in search of the world's best pianos. We have for some time wanted to review a Stuart & Sons piano, but have not been able to find one here in the States. We are told that there may be one in San Francisco, California. We would be interested in reviewing that piano if at all possible. Please feel free to contact me back at this email address and also find out a little bit about us on my YouTube channel," and I gave him a link to the channel. So what was kind of cool is he actually replied to me in a relatively short amount of time. I went to bed, and when I came back in the morning, a few hours later, about 6 hours later, there was a reply from Wayne Stuart himself. Now, I was actually very excited about that because from many of the videos online, you will see he seems to be such a nice, happy guy. He's like the jolly old Saint Nick of Australia, or the Bob Ross of the piano world. He seems like a really nice guy, and I was so happy that I got a reply. However, when I started reading it, I became not so excited. His reply goes like this, and I'll read you the first little bit of it here. "Hello, James." Seems nice so far. "The instruments we have in the US," and if I could do an Australian accent, I so would be doing it here, but I don't know how to do one, so I'm sorry. "The instruments we have in the US are in private hands, and as you may appreciate, they are inaccessible to mome-raths and moochers." Now, I don't really know what that means, but I think I've been insulted. I'm not 100% sure, though. He goes on to say, "I don't wish to be critical nor offensive." And then he proceeds to offend me rather personally and be very critical of my videos. So that's really fun. And apparently, for some reason, he seems to absolutely hate him. I have never met him in person. I have never talked to him before this. I have never played one of his pianos, and I won't ever play one of his pianos. I hope he is happy about that. There's a speck of dirt on my screen, and it needs to go. So that, I thought, was rather interesting, because in these videos that you see online of, local news, companies coming out and doing an interview with him when he released the 108-key Bellura piano, he seems so nice and friendly and happy and like a really cool guy who's making a really cool product, but I guess that isn't the case. He definitely seems to hate me, and believe it or not, this is actually probably the worst hate comment or anything like this I've ever received. I do get a few of them from time to time, emails and YouTube comments, but I think this is actually the worst and the most vicious, which I find really interesting, that a maker of pianos just randomly decides to hate me. I don't know. So the question here now is, why did Wayne Stuart reply to me in this way? Like I said, I have never done anything to him. I don't know about you, but I thought the email I sent to him was really nice and friendly sounding, and I don't see what there was to get offended by that. So the question is, though, why does Wayne Stuart hate me? Or why did he reply the way he did? Well, the first thing you must understand about me, and I'm going to put this down, I don't think I need it anymore. The thing you must understand about me and the videos that I make, if you haven't seen them, you might enjoy them, is that I do honest reviews of pianos and other instruments too, but mostly pianos. So when I sit down at a piano that I find, whether it's my own or a piano that I find out in some shop, I give an honest review. I play it, I talk about the sound, I talk about what I like about the piano, any interesting features it might have, and then I also will mention some of the things that I don't like about a piano. Now, if I find a piano that I genuinely hate, I'm not going to do a video on it. There might be some exceptions in the future, mostly just for fun, but generally if I find a piano in a store that I don't like say it's some cheap stencil brand that isn't good, I just don't do a video on it, because that's not the stuff that I usually do. But if I find an overall good piano that might have, say, a note in the treble that's a little bit too bright, or say the action is a little bit too heavy, or maybe it needs a bit of a tune, usually I will address that and talk about that if there's something I don't like about the piano, but usually it's nothing too huge. It's like, oh, this note up in the treble could use a little bit of voicing, but other than that, it's a fantastic piano. My point is here, I talk about the things I like about pianos, and I talk about the things that I don't like about pianos, and I give honest reviews, at least as close to them as I can. Perhaps Wayne Stuart doesn't like that. Perhaps he doesn't like that I'm giving honest reviews about the channel. I mean, about pianos. Maybe he's scared about something I might find in a Stuart & Sons piano. Again, I've never played one, so I really have nothing to go off of here, but I guess that might be it. As I mentioned, they have a few different models of pianos, the 97 key, the 102 key, and the one and only 108 key, which is in Australia. Good luck me reviewing that one. So basically, the 97 key happens to have the same amount of keys as the very famous Bosendorfer Imperial, the 290, which has 97 keys. What happens in that piano is below the lowest note on the piano, it actually goes down a few more keys, down to the C below the lowest note on the piano, so it goes down to the C below it. I've done a video on that. It's actually my most popular video. So maybe Wayne Stuart doesn't like the fact that that video did so well and got that amount of views, and he doesn't want that amount of publicity. Maybe that's why he doesn't want me to come and review one of his pianos, because I would imagine that if I did a video of the Stuart & Sons, which I'm not going to do anymore, but if I did, it probably would have done pretty well, because the Stuart & Sons piano seems to be the piano that you can see videos of online, but no one actually seems to have actually played one. You don't really see any accounts in the comments of people having played one. There's just videos of people playing them, but no one has actually been able to do an in-depth review of them. The closest thing that I was able to find online of a review wasn't really a review, it was just more of a guy filming vertically with his phone talking about the piano, but I did manage to learn a couple of things about the Stuart & Sons from that video, and one of them would be that parts of it are actually heavily inspired from other makes of piano, and two of those would be that it has 4 pedals, and also, of course, I knew this already, but it also has extra keys in the bass as well as in the treble. So the quadruple pedal thing, I first knew about that from Fazioli. Fazioli has been doing a quadruple pedal system in their pianos for quite some time now, and it's available like stock on the F308, their largest model, but I believe you can custom order any Fazioli with 4 pedals, which is kind of cool. The left pedal controls the distance of the hammers to the strings, and when you push it, it raises them up towards the strings and makes the piano play quieter. The normal left pedal on a normal piano does the same thing on a 4-pedal unit, except it's the one over from the left, and that one moves the whole action over to the right, and it also makes the piano quieter, and you can pair them to make the piano super, super quiet. Stuart & Sons has this mechanism as well. It appears to work exactly identical to the Fazioli method that I have personally reviewed, and so that's kind of interesting that they've basically just have a knockoff of the Fazioli mechanism in their own piano. And the other thing I wanted to talk about would be the fact that Stuart & Sons pianos have extra bass keys, which would be inspired from the Bosendorfer Imperial. I mentioned that top video that I have of the Bosendorfer Imperial, my most popular video. I'm so happy about that. It's so cool. So basically, of course, if I were to review a Stuart & Sons piano, again, I'm not going to, but if I were, the only thing I could really compare the sound of those bass notes to would be a Bosendorfer Imperial, because it's one of the only other few pianos in the world that has those extra notes. And perhaps Wayne Stewart believes that his piano doesn't have as good of a bass sound as on the Bosendorfer, and so therefore I would have to say in my video that the Bosendorfer was better. Maybe that's why Wayne Stewart was so against me reviewing one of his pianos. I'm not sure I will ever truly know the truth. Couple other things I wanted to talk about here, again, about Bosendorfer, would be that you can find Bosendorfer pianos in some of the most prestigious concert halls in the world. But where can you find a Stuart & Sons piano? They're not in the most prestigious concert halls in the world. Valentina Lisitsa doesn't specifically play on Stuart & Sons. She chooses Bosendorfer for a reason. Stuart & Sons pianos can be found in a few very fancy historic homes in Australia, one of those being the Ballura House, and there's a couple others that are homes to various politicians and government officials of Australia. There are Stuart & Sons pianos in their homes, and there's also one in a museum in Australia, which is kind of cool, I guess, and there's also a couple in a few schools and universities, which is cool, I guess. If there's anything I know about these schools, a lot of the times they buy these things and then hardly ever use them, so I don't think that those Stuart & Sons pianos are probably getting all of that much publicity, and I'll bet you that at that museum and at those politicians' homes, they do tours at many of those places, and you probably can't play the piano, so it's just there for show. Isn't that fun? So that is something kind of interesting about Stuart & Sons pianos, that they haven't made their way to any of the world's greatest concert halls yet. You'd think that if these were, in fact, the world's greatest pianos, that someone like perhaps the Sydney Opera House would have a Stuart & Sons piano. Don't know what piano they have, but I wasn't able to see anything online of them having a Stuart & Sons piano. And while I don't even know that they have a piano, I do know that they are home to one of only 2 organs in the world with 64-foot long pipes. So if they're home to a 64-foot organ stop, they're also probably home to a world's greatest piano, which apparently isn't the Stuart & Sons. So that is a couple of things that I wanted to mention about those pianos, and one of the final things I wanted to talk about here would be, how do you tune a piano with extra strings? Because that is one of the biggest flaws I know about in a Stuart & Sons piano. Haven't really played them. There's not really any great videos online of them being played normally, so I can't really talk too much about the quality of the sound of them. But what I can talk about would be the tuning of them. Now, the tuning of the bass strings would work the same way on a Stuart & Sons as it would be on a Bosendorfer Imperial or one of their other models that has extra keys. What you'd want to do is you'd want to, if you have one of these, you'd put a glove on your hand, and then you would, to protect the strings, and then you would find the center point of the bass string. And then when you have your finger with the glove on and you're tapping the bass string, and you push that down the note, what will happen is it will actually play a higher harmonic of that note, the first harmonic, an octave above. So if you have C0 on a Bosendorfer or C0 on a Stuart & Sons and you're wondering how you tune it, you'd you'd use the first harmonic method, which would then play the normal C1 up here, which virtually every piano tuner can recognize, and then you would be able to tune that note. So the bass side of tuning those instruments really isn't that hard of a challenge. I've never done it myself, but I don't think that tuning the bass end of a Bosendorfer or a Stuart & Sons would really be all that much of a challenge. Where it really would come down to a big issue would be in the treble end of a Stuart & Sons, because many of their models actually go above C8 on the piano. I believe there's a couple models that go up to the F above it, and I believe the 108 key goes even higher than that. I think it's almost a full octave above C8. And on many pianos, in fact, virtually every piano I have ever run across, including the top brands like Fazioli and Bose-Nerfer and Yamaha, C8 has virtually no sustain, which makes it very challenging to tune. In fact, the top like 7 or 8 notes up here hardly have any sustain. There's a little bit, but there's not really enough for a piano tuner to lock onto and detect the pitch and tell you which way it's going, because by the time it has figured out the pitch and where it's going, the note's already dead. So how do you tune notes even higher than this? Because first of all, piano tuners sometimes have trouble recognizing these notes and figuring out where they are. So how do you tune higher than that? And then how do those stay in tune? That is the question. How do you tune them? And if you manage to get them in tune somehow, how do they stay in tune? And that probably is the biggest reason why Wayne Stuart refuses to let me review any of his pianos, because I'm willing to bet you that that piano that's in San Francisco and that piano that's in Vermont and probably many of the other ones in Australia and any other parts of the world they're in, probably just Australia and a couple here, is that those notes are radically out of tune. Even on my own piano, there's a couple notes that need some tuning. So imagine what it would be like if there's extra notes up here that no human can really possibly tune, and yet they're there that technically can be played. Because if I found that in a video, I would definitely mention that those notes were out of tune. And on top of that, because the strings are like this long, so there's hardly any presence to some of them, and they're just very bright and percussive and shrill sounding. So that is another interesting thing about that tuning those notes up in the treble would be virtually impossible, and that's probably the biggest reason why Wayne Stuart doesn't want me to review his pianos. As to why he was so rude to me, I don't think I will ever know, because if he didn't want me to review the pianos, there are more polite ways of saying it, but I don't think I will ever know truly why he wanted me to not to review his pianos. There was one other thing here in the email that I did want to discuss before I left, which I think would be up here. Oh yeah, here it is. He says in his email to fix the format of your videos, and I might talk further. And no, I'm not going to be changing the format of my videos specifically so that I can please one random guy from Australia to review his pianos. That's not worth it. I like the format of my videos, and I think probably, and many of you guys would probably agree with this, the best thing about my videos is that I am honest. When I go into a store or when I visit someone's private residence, which I've done many times, I don't want to be limited. I don't want to be controlled in what I can say. If the piano is trash, I'm not going to review it. It's as simple as that. But if the piano does have a few small flaws, I do want to be able to mention that. If a note is out of tune, or if a note needs regulation, or if I don't like the action, I do want to be able to mention that. I don't want to just throw it under the rug and not talk about it at all. So I want to be able to keep my channel as honest as possible, and I don't think that Wayne Stuart would want me to be able to be so honest in the videos that I did. If there was anything I didn't like about the piano, I probably just wouldn't be able to talk about it. So I think that's about everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm very sorry to all of you that I'm not going to be reviewing a Stuart & Sons, but I did want to give a big thank you to Graham Lowe, the commenter who introduced me to the wonders of Wayne Stuart. And also, believe it or not, I'm going to give you a thank you, Mr. Wayne Stuart, because thank you for crossing a piano off of my bucket list that I no longer have to track down and find and play. Stuart & Sons has been crossed off the list. Let's pretend it never exists, and I will move on to playing better and more exciting pianos. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as you can. Those other boutique manufacturers, for now, the doors are still open. Brocato, Strad, Chris Main, any others that I might not have mentioned. There's a couple other cool ones out there that I think I'm forgetting, like Steingraber. There's a relatively small German brand that I haven't done too many videos on. Maybe I'll do some on them in the future. But for now, the doors on all of those are open until someone decides to slam one of those closed, which hopefully will not happen. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to go ahead and check out my channel. If you're new here, you might enjoy some of my honest piano reviews. If you do, you might want to think about subscribing. And if you do that, well, thank you very much. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.